Hello, everybody. It's a Wednesday night. I just got back from the pottery studio and I've been throwing for most of the night, put together these videos, and now I've just figured I would narrate one of them and tell you what's going on. So I appreciate your time. You've got many things that you could be spending your time doing, and you've chosen to spend 8 or 9 minutes of your life watching what I'm doing, and I appreciate that. So what you just saw me doing was I threw the clay down and pounded on it a little bit and kind of smacked it so that it would stick down onto the wheel. And now I'm doing what's called coning, or pulling a cone, or there's always the word cone involved somewhere. People call it different things, but basically you're pulling the clay into a vertical column. This does a couple of things. First of all, it helps me to center the clay on the wheel so that it's in the center and it's rotating instead of wobbling around. And the other thing it does is it introduces more moisture into the clay, and it softens and prepares the clay for so it behaves itself on the wheel. Personally, I use my left arm more for centering. I put more pressure and more stability in my left arm. It's because I'm bent over and I'm actually leaning on my left thigh with my left elbow. So my left arm is very firmly anchored, and I can put a lot of control over the clay using that way. And my right arm is more loose when I'm doing this, but not everybody does this the same way. I just have kind of a body position that works for me, so I have like a lot of control over the clay because it really wants to wiggle around, and you have to get it forced into the center, and that can take some force. The next thing you see me do is I'm going to take my two thumbs and I'm going to force them down into the clay. That's right there. I just plunge them down into the clay and create what's called a well. The well in the middle is just, it defines the interior space for what will be the inside of the mug that I'm throwing. Now you're about to see me do what's called a pull. The first pull, I have my left hand with my knuckle against the outside of the pot and a finger on the inside of the pot. And I've got my two hands kind of anchored together so I can tell exactly how far apart my two hands are. And then I squeeze the clay near the bottom and pull it upwards so that clay that's near the bottom of the pot gets pulled up into the walls of the cylinder. And this way the cylinder gets taller. This is actually quite a difficult technique, and it takes a long time to get really good at it. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an excellent potter. I'm actually fairly mediocre. I do need to work on making my pots taller, thinner, with not as much bulk in the base. But everybody's got a journey, and I'm on mine. At the same studio, earlier in the evening, I was sitting literally next to a professional potter who had been doing this for over 45 years professionally. Like, he had his own studio, he had 12 employees, and he had many bags of clay there, and he was just whipping out bowls, all just 1, 2, 3, 4, taking a couple of minutes each. And they were all identical and perfect, and just, they were all like a matching set, and he was just throwing them off like nothing. It was inspiring to watch. I am nowhere close to being that good. not even close. But it does give me something to aspire towards. It's not really a skill that you can watch and then just do. Your hands have to learn it. And my hands still need a lot of practice to get that good at it. If you go on YouTube, you can find channels of people who are expert potters, and you can watch them throwing and you go, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. If you're watching those things, if you are a potter, you can recognize that skill when you see it. It's a little humbling, but it does give you something to aspire towards. And that's really what this is all about. There's a common aphorism that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Now, some people say the opposite of that. If something is worth doing, then it's worth doing well. But I actually like the opposite version of that. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly, because you start doing it badly, and it's worth doing so that you get better at it. It's already worth doing while you're doing it badly. That's really what I'm trying to say. Now, my pottery isn't awful. I think I'm okay at it, but I'm certainly not, I'm not an expert. I'm not a master. And actually, that's a little humbling as well. I mean, I'm glad that you've decided to watch this video because there are so many other potters doing this kind of thing and putting up videos on Instagram and on YouTube and Facebook. And you can watch people who are experts at this, but you've chosen to watch mine instead. So thanks. I hope hope I'm offering something to you that you're enjoying. Now you can see right now I'm cleaning up the bottom with I'm cleaning up the skirt around the bottom of my cylinder with a wooden tool that I've had for over 30 years. That little tool. Pottery is, well, it's an ancient form of art form. It's prehistoric. Like, people have been doing it since you would just use a rock and mud and you can make pottery. You don't need expensive stuff. However, if you want to spend thousands of dollars on equipment, you absolutely can. The stuff is out there. You can buy a $70 trimming tool or a $40 sponge, and it's out there. But really, you can make pottery with very modest equipment. This one, for example, I've got a little metal rib that I'm using there right now. And a rib, well, I mean, in ancient times, you actually would have used a real rib, like, from an animal. And I've seen examples of ribs that are made from a rib bone. Now, just mine happens to be made from a little piece of aluminum. So you'll see for the next little while what I'm doing is just fussing over the shape a bit and, compressing the clay with my rib. And, well, here I've got a sponge and I'm soaking up some of the water that accumulated in the inside. I've got the wheel turning at about a mid speed right now. It's not going super slow, but it's definitely not going, full speed. At the beginning, when I was centering the clay and coning and doing that first, creating the well, it was going at top speed. You want really fast wheel action when that's going on. But then at this point where I've got a taller cylinder, if I had the wheel going at full speed, it would flop all over the place. The centripetal force would just, flatten the thing. So you've got to slow the wheel down, and because the wheel is going slower, it means that all my hand movements also need to be slower. And this is just about done. This is the shape that I was after. It has a very slight belly on it, just a little curve. It's not totally straight. The rim, I'm compressing it there right now so that it's less likely to crack. And the next step is I will grab my wire tool and just floss it off the bat. It's like using dental floss. You just kind of pass it underneath, cut it off there. I pull the pot slightly towards me to release it from the wheel before lifting and putting it onto a little board so I can carry it over to the drying area. There's still several steps left before this is done. I will let this dry a little bit and then flip it over, trim the bottom, and then I'll add some decorations, maybe a handle. Then it needs to be fired in the kiln. That's about a 2-day process. After that's done, add some glaze and then fire it again. So, it's still going to be a while before this is a finished piece. I appreciate the time that you spent watching this video. I would love it if you leave something in the comments of whatever platform you're watching this on and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know where geographically these videos are being seen, and if you have some kind of a personal connection with pottery or ceramics, I'm interested in knowing that as well. Or if you have some other art form that inspires you, please let me know in the comments. I want to read what you have to say. So, that's that. I appreciate you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Good night.